G'day, I'm Mark Hoth and welcome to Swift Almanac. Probably the most important thing to understand in iOS development is the user interface. It's vital that you know all of the terms and when you should use which types of interface elements to do a job. In each of the tutorials, I was showing you how to do things using both the StoryBoard and how to write things just in code. It's important to be able to do both because when you're working in a team or applying for a job, you'll need to work in with what the other developers are doing or have done in the past. After all, there's not much point being a coding expert if all of the interface has already been developed in the StoryBoard. This is the first in a series of 9 interface tutorials which will cover off the 3 main views, the SingleView, TableView and the collection view, as well as how to set up navigation view controllers, tab view controllers and the split view controller. Finally, we'll be moving between views in what is called Segwaying, and a segue is Italian for follows. In the last tutorial, we'll hook everything together into a code demonstration with a TableView and a SingleView app. I'm going to try and knock these out as quickly as possible, and then once we can create views and navigate between them, I'll be doing a 14-part series on user interface controls. What we've got here are the 3 main view controllers, and I'm going to describe each one and how they work. So the first one is the single view controller. If you've looked at our login series, then that's the one we've been using so far. It is just a single view, hence the name, and all of the user interface elements that you want to incorporate can be placed anywhere in this available view. So on the right hand, and if we want to create multiple view controllers, then we just drag one out and put it on the StoryBoard. We've got a second one and we can put whatever we want on into the view, segmented controls, etc. The second type of view controller is a table view controller, and a table view controller has a reusable cell, and that cell defines a vertical list of items. So everything you want to place, you place in the cell, and what will happen is this cell will continuously redraw based on the number of items in some form of database to display on the screen. So if you've got like 100 items, it will display 6 of them and you'll be able to scroll up and down, etc. But the thing that you need to remember is that everything has to fit into the cell. You can resize the cell and make it larger. Or if you use the interface over here, table view cell, under the attributes, under the size inspector, you can vary the size. There it is. You can vary the size of the cell to make it as big as needed. There's an update problem in Xcode 9 anyway. And then, so this is good for a list that is basically stacked on top of each other. And then the final view controller is the collection view controller, and this has a cell as well, but it will enable you to have both horizontal and vertical cells, so it will tile across the available space on the whole screen view. And you would have seen this in things like photo libraries where there's like maybe 3 or 4 photos across and 5 or 6 down, depending on what kind of phone you've got or if you're using an iPad, etc. So those are the 3 view controllers. Now if you've got more than one view controller, each of these items in the interface builder or on the StoryBoard, if you go to the identity inspector, it'll say the class view controller, and what you can do if you right click over here, we always create a group called view controllers, and then we can add a new file to the view controllers. It's a CocoaTouch file, and we can name each one, so it can be the first view controller and make it a subclass of the UI view controller, and that will give us a file. And going back to the storyboard, this one here, the class, we just changed the class to first view controller, so that will associate whatever we do in the storyboard and this view controller with this file. And if we move this other view controller in here and rename it second view controller, then this item here we can change to second view controller. So that's how we get a link between the image of this view controller and the code over here. Now if we look at the TableView controller, we can do a similar sort of thing. We can create a new file, CocoaTouch class, but we want to call it our TableView controller, and instead of being a subclass of UI view controller, we want it to be a subclass of UI TableView controller. Again, well, it's renamed it the wrong thing. You've always got to make sure that the names match up. And the same thing here, we can just put TableView controller. However, we also had this cell. TableView cell, and that also has a class to describe what's going on in this cell. And so we also need to create a, not just a TableView controller, but a table cell controller. And it's and that's going to be subclass of UI TableView cell. And it just doesn't like the So when we've clicked on the cell, we can just change this to table cell controller, and you'll see under the table view, we also need to have an identifier here called the reuse identifier, and that needs to be unique. If you have multiple table views, then this reuse identifier has to be different to the other one, and so we'll call this one first cell. Now the collection view is exactly the same. We need to create a new file. It's CocoaTouch class. It's going to be UI collection view controller. We'll call it collection view controller. We'll create that file. Needs to be called collection view controller. Again, in the collection view, we need a file, and we also need one for the cell. So we create those, a new file, collection view cell. Go back to our main view. Okay, so that's basically how we're creating different instances of each of these different types of collections. So the single view, just as a recap, allows you to do everything. The table view allows you to do things or the same thing multiple times, going vertically from the top to the bottom, and the collection view allows you to do things both in a horizontal and in a vertical way, and it reuses this. Now, of course, you can actually set the collection view up so that it's as wide, in which case it's going to act as though it is a table view. But it's important to know when you should use this one and when you should use that one. So once you've got your views, there's some other things that you are going to want to do. You want to be able to navigate between different views, unless you've only got one page on your app, like you're a game or something like that. But for most people, you're going to have main parts of your app, and you're going to have settings pages and things like that. So how do we display navigation? So there are these navigation controllers. If you've got a single view, the navigation controller basically creates this menu bar at the top. Okay, well, it allows you to put things like a title, and it allows you to put things like buttons in the top. And then by holding down Control and dragging to another view controller, you can set up a segue between the different views, and the navigation controller, basically this is like as a stack. So this will be the first view, and then if you navigate to this one will be the one on top of the stack. So it's like a pack of cards, and then when you get rid of this one, then you've taken that card off the stack and you're back to one card, and you can keep doing this indefinitely. And this navigation controller basically keeps an array of these different view controllers that you have, and basically put stacks one on top of the other, and then removes them. So if you're familiar with push and pop, then it's pushing them on and then it's popping them off, and that's how a navigation controller will work. Now, the other thing you're probably familiar with is a tab bar controller, and a tab bar controller allows you to flick between up to 5 items that are down here. When you drag a tab bar controller from here in the interface builder, by default it comes up with these 2 view controllers, but if you add a single view like that, then you can add another one, and the relationship Seg is as a view controller, and it just puts automatically in your views, it will put the tab bar controller at the bottom, and there's a little icon and a name that you can change. So that's the tab bar. Now, the way the tab bar works is it keeps all 3 of these views in memory, and basically allows you to switch between one or the other when you click on these buttons. The difference between the navigation controller is it only keeps things in memory while they're pushed onto the stack. So once you close one of these down, it disappears forever and it just falls back to the next one that's on the stack. With a tab view controller, they're all there. Now, even though I've used single view applications here, if you use a table view, for instance, you can still have a table view as part of these view controllers, and you can have a split view as well if that's what you so desire, or a collection view, I should say. You can have anything here, it's just that this interface is added to the view of the single view or the table view or the collection view if that's what you're using. Finally, there's the split view controller. Now, this is only available on iPads and plus-sized iPhones, and basically when you are in the landscape orientation, there'll be a view controller or a navigation controller on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side there's what's called the detail. So there's the master to the left and there's the detail to the right, and essentially it allows you to, as the name suggests, it's a split view controller, so it allows you to have things like a table view on the left hand side, and as you select items in the table, on the right hand side it will show you a list view, or sorry, a single view, which allow you to say edit those items or add items, etc. And we will have a look at how to do that later. So that's basically the three different ways of navigation, and then the final thing that we need to cover is segueing, and segueing is basically these links between the navigation controllers, or the navigation controller, the tab bar controller, or this split view controller, and how they move from one view to another view. And as I said, when you control drag in a navigation controller to a view controller, this little modal dialog comes up and it gives you what's essentially four ways to segue. There's the show, which is just basically displayed as the new view controller, which is basically pushing it onto the stack with the navigation controller. There's show detail, which is used only in the split view controller, because the one on the left is the master and the one on the right is the detail controller. So you would use a show detail if there was a change to the master that you wanted to update on the detail. And then there's present modally and present as a popover. So a modal is a full screen alert where you can't do anything else until you've made a selection. So it's like an alert or alert controller. And present as a popover is essentially a small alert which will go away if you click outside the available area. But in terms of moving between major components of your application, we'll be using show. And as you can see in this navigation controller, you can have multiple different ways to get to the same view. There you go. Now you know all of the major view terminology and when we should be using those views and how we can navigate between them with the various navigation tab or split view controllers. In the next tutorial, we will be covering single view applications, and in all of the next tutorials, as I mentioned earlier, I will be demonstrating how to use both StoryBoard and developing simply just using code. If you have any questions about this tutorial, then please leave a comment below or hit me up on Twitter @SwiftAlmanac. Please subscribe to the channel, it's free, and check out our website at www.swiftalmanac.com. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Cheers.